Hello everyone, I'm Emily Ruth, and today this video will be my opinions about my reading the Holy Bible. And I am 7 books deep in right now, and it is just like one crazy soap opera. Some of it's a little boring, a little tedious, but it is what it is. But I have a lovely podcast that I'm listening to called Heart Dive, and she does a really good job reading it to me, so like a kindergartner, but it helps so much. And she does really good about relaying it, how even the most boring part, how it can relate to prevalent life. So I really appreciate that. I'll link her down in the description. But yeah, so my thoughts on the Holy Bible is kind of cuckoo cuckoo, because it is crazy, like a soap opera. And Genesis is the first book. We all know. It's the first book. So here are my thoughts. I have a list front to back. So I have all my thoughts because I have done this video quite a few times, and I even uploaded one the other day and I was like, this isn't it. So I'm redoing it. So here are my honest thoughts. For Genesis, also means beginnings, by the way, just so you know. Creation history is missing something. Souls, angel, cherubim, free will, lesson, sin. None of that's mentioned. Also, the Bible, when the Lord is talking, it mentions us. Like, who is that? Who is us? In chapter 1, verse 26, chapter 3, verse 22, and chapter 11, verse 7, mentions us. So who is he talking to, saying us? There's 2 trees among all the other fruit trees in the Garden of Eden. There's the tree of life. Nothing else is mentioned of it. The tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's forbidden, but why would you put it in there in the first place? Or even make it to begin with? Also, didn't even say the fruit was an apple. So what is good and evil to God, according to the beginning, So God made Adam from dust of the ground, or dirt, I believe, and made him to tend to the garden. And then Adam, I guess, was kind of lonely, and God didn't want Adam to be lonely, so he made him like all the animals and stuff. But Adam was like, nah, this isn't comparable to me, so he made him Eve from his rib. Which I was like, huh. Which I kind of heard about that. So, this is where it gets kind of juicy, because it just blows my mind. Because when I think about reading in the Bible, I think there's like this like long, contentious chapters. These chapters are short, by the way. It's not really a chapter like you would think, like a chapter book. They're really short. So, you would think there'd be more detail, more intricacies to the beginning, but there isn't. I guess that's how it was written. But anyway, so I want to read this. This is from the New King James Version, and I got this Bible because I like the cover of it, and that's pretty much it. There's like a little bit of controversy about the New King James Version, because it was written in the era of King James, and apparently he like rewrote some things in it. That's all I know about that. So, well, anyway, so we're going to the temptation. I'm reading chapter 3 a little bit, not all of it. It said, now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. And then the serpent said to the woman, you will surely not die, for God knows, that's very important. God knows that in the day you eat it, of your eye will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing God in good and evil. And so then she eats it, and she gets her Adam to eat it, and God's like, what the heck? Y'all see each other naked, what is this? And Adam's like, well, it was her. And then Eve's like, well, it was the serpent. And she's like, the serpent deceived me. The serpent did not deceive you. Like, oh my gosh, it did not deceive me. That was free will at practice right there. The serpent just said the truth. And Adam and Eve chose to not follow what God said. So then all three of them got cursed. And the serpent for no reason. But the serpent said God knows the day. So wasn't this plan all along for them to not be in the garden even the whole time? All this because one person. So then they get cast out of the freaking Eden. And so then they had two kids. Two kids, right? They had two kids. And I will prevalences. They have a lot of person had this person. And I get it for good reasons. To set the stage for their lives, but it's very tedious. Very like this person, we got this person, this person. It's just a lot to remember. And I wish they had like some family tree because that would help. I'm sure they're out there, but I want to also know how people live so long because they're living to like in the hundreds, 200s, 300s, and so on. It's kind of crazy. So there's that. Okay. So the first time sin is ever mentioned is chapter 4, verse 7. Cain and Abel were Adam and Eve's kids. So Cain was not respected more. Why was he not respected more than Abel? And I feel this whole plan or game, I like to call it, that God has probably wouldn't have gone to court in a plan if God respected Cain. So Cain murdered Abel, so he's dead. So Cain got out of the sight of God, and he went and had more people, had children, which I don't know how he found a wife, because I thought Adam and Eve were the only people. Where did the rest of these people come from? It doesn't really say. So if anybody knows, let me know, because what the heck. Yeah, it confuses me a lot. So, then it goes on to talk about other things. So, why was the book of Enoch not included? He didn't die. He walked with God. And he was also part of Adam's family down the line. So, it seems important, and it's good enough for the Ethiopia Bible to have it. And they're Christian. So, yeah. Also, there is somewhere in this book I've been reading that the chapters I've read, there is some character in the book mentions another book, and I remember the Heart Dive podcast saying like, oh, I wonder why that book isn't there, but I just got trust God. I remember, but I can't find it, and whenever I find it, I will talk about it, and then I will look it up, but I really want to know what the book of Enoch is about, so eventually I would like to read it, because I hear that's like where the fall of angels and all that jazz, the supernatural stuff that interests me is there. So, yeah. Let's see, chapter 6 talks about the giants and the Nephilim and the sons of God, but they don't say angels in that, and I wonder if the wording, it meant to say angels or not. But had wives, the human wives, and then they had children. So I think God allowed that to happen. God allowed that. So, because if you think about it, God created everything. And when you read down, like, God has a plan for everything, and God knows everything, God allowed that to happen. But the reason why he wanted to destroy the earth is because the wicked of man was so evil in their hearts. It was continuously evil. So that's why he wanted to destroy. But this is where Noah came in. Noah changed his mind about that. So, destroy the earth was the flood, by the way. So in chapter 8, this is where the dove with the olive branch came from. I did not know. I just thought that was just a thing. And that's how Noah knew there was vital land, because the dove came back with the branch. So this is also where they first talk of altar and burnt offerings, clean and unclean animals, in the first book. But you would think they would add what that was about in there, but they didn't. So, and they don't talk about that until later. I want to say when Moses comes about in Exodus, Leviticus. I think it might be in Leviticus because that's where it has a bunch of instructions. Anyway, I go on. But why did God need sacrifices and burnt offerings? Like, why did he need that? To smell the aroma and it pleases him. It's a lot of talk about smelling the aroma. Like, why was that a thing? You know, if he's God and all-knowing, why does he need that? He can just make it himself. But I digress. So, my second page. Also, how did Noah's grandsons multiply if all the earth got flooded? I don't understand that, because Noah brought his sons and his wives and they multiplied, but where was this incest going on? Or were there people still there? And I'm assuming people had survived everywhere. Not all, obviously, but I think there's 5. They survived because in other countries they have stories of a great flood as well. So, I digress. Rainbow, in case you didn't know, is the covenant or agreement to not to flood the earth and cut off all the flesh again. Like, from the waters. It's, between Noah and all that jazz. So I thought that was interesting. What I did not know, though, is the Tower of Babel. And I think this is where babbling come from. Like kids babbling. This is where all the different languages come off, but I don't understand why God didn't want everybody to be one together. But I guess since he wanted them all off the earth, he had to get it to where they could populate the earth, I guess. It's kind of crazy to think about, but maybe it had to do with the heart thing of knowing. I don't know. Chapter 16, verse 7, first talk of the angel of the Lord. Now, I've learned this recently, and I think in Judges, that it might have been Jesus, like, spirit, or they call it Christophany. It's like the spiritual Jesus. So there's that, which possibly could be. There's also a significant with numbers, and it's very intentional because of like this 3 or this 8 days or 7 days. It's like very intentional and intricate with that. There's also name changes. So Abraham and Sarai became Abram and Sarai became Abraham and Sarah. So I wonder if there's significant name change with frequency. There has to be, because I've been hearing little things that like when like souls are coming in, like they pick their name, and I think their name has a frequency to it, and there's like a number associated. There's like a whole thing. I've never gotten those readings kind of done, but apparently that's like a thing. Circumcision was the covenant with Abraham. But why was that a thing? Like, why do you have to do bodily harm? Cut off the flesh of a penis. Why would you do that? And it was only with men, clearly, because I assume it was only with men. Because with females, I don't think that would have been great. But it doesn't, it says men, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I think it was only with the men. Abraham also bargains with God to help save the Sodom city, but the Sodom city obviously got destroyed. And that's when I noticed like the angel of the Lord is different from just 2 angels, because in chapter 9 it says 2 angels, and they're also kind of like badass, I guess, but it's not the same as the angel of the Lord. So during that time, like, Lot, his wife, and 2 daughters, like, had to go out the city because the angels were destroying it. And basically, they were like, don't turn around unless you turn to a pillar of salt. And his wife ended up doing that. I think it was Ash, really. I'm trying to think logical, but, whatever. And so Lot's lineage only survived because his daughters slept with him when he got drunk. So those two clans, Ammonites and the Moabites, or the Ammonim, I'm pretty sure that's the Ammonites and the Moabites. They're incest clans, basically. So, fun fact. So, life goes on a little bit, and then Abraham had another son from Sarah. It was his only son from Sarah, and he was called Isaac. And he offered him as a sacrifice, like literally almost sacrificed his son for God because he feared God. And my question that thought up is, if God is love, why does he need people to fear him? For him to follow him and trust him? Like, I don't really understand that quite yet. Just my first thoughts of reading Genesis. Sarah also had to trust God because she was very infertile till she got very old, and she thought she couldn't have any kids, and God was like, you're gonna have a kid. And that's how Isaac came about. So she had a really good trust in God. But Abraham also had kids from Sarah's servant because of that. She was like, here, so you can have some kids, because I clearly can't have any. That was the thing they did, by the way. So time went on, and Isaac had two boys, twins, Esau and Jacob. Jacob is very prevalent because Jacob took Esau's blessings. He had to flee because obviously his brother was pissed about it, probably going to kill him. And he ended up being in slavery. And slavery, as the Heart Dog podcast says, was a form of payment back in the day. So you would do for so many years and then you'd be released type situation. He ended up slaving for his wife Rachel and Leah. Leah got, I want to say Jacob got tricked into marrying Leah, and then he had to do more years to get the one he wanted, which was Rachel. But anyway, he ended up having 12 sons. And these 12 sons are the Israelites, because Jacob's name get turned into Israel. So Israel wasn't technically a place. Israel was a person. The Israelites were Jacob's children, and that's who Israel is. So that's basically how Israel became Israel. Now, one of his sons, Joseph, ended up in slavery, because his brothers, put him in a hole, ended up selling him to, I can't remember who, but some clan, and he ended up in Egypt as a slave. So he working his way around and all that jazz to become very renowned over there. And his brothers ended up coming back and going to Egypt because there was a famine about. And so that's how the Israelites were in Egypt. Yeah. And blessings were given by his Jacob or Israel before he died. And that's how all the trials and errors and hooligans and shenanigans they go through. So yeah, all of that in the book of Genesis. It's freaking crazy. It's like a soap opera. There's more little details in there, obviously, but I'm not going to read all that to you all. But those were just my main thoughts about Genesis. I'm just wow, that really blows my freaking mind. I really thought Israel was just a place, but no, Israel was a freaking person. A person, you guys, a person. So, yeah. So the next video, I'm going to talk about Exodus, which was 400 years later after that. So, anyways, I hope you all have a fabulous day. Bye!